Welcome back, friends and family. I'm Codiferrous, and today I'm bringing you Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, all main bosses ranked from easiest to hardest. Because there are so many damn bosses in this game, I've broken the boss ranking for Sekiro into two videos. For this video, I'll be analyzing each main boss battle in detail and providing strategies against them. In a separate video, I will have gone over all mini-boss encounters, so if you're interested in that, then feel free to check it out. Before we kick things off, we need to go over a few things. First and foremost, this list is made with the first-time Sekiro player in mind. This means that I am accounting for the skill level of new players as they progress through the game, making notes of their abilities, attack power, and prayer necklace count at each instance of each boss. Next, this list is entirely based on my personal opinion and is not meant to be taken as concrete fact. Each player's experience with the game is different, so it only makes sense that each of our opinions would also be different. I wanted to make a note that in my playthrough of the game, I used 0 candies, no dancing dragon mask upgrades, and only used divine confetti on the apparition enemies. This means that I beat the vast majority of these bosses without any attack steroids outside of the appropriate memory attack boosts. With that in mind, I also want to add that each boss was encountered and defeated as early as reasonably possible, so there was no going off into the hyperbolic time chamber and then return nuking them. For the gameplay that you are about to see, I want to say that on my first playthrough of the game, I did Lady Butterfly's memory, Owl's memory, and opted for the Dragon's Homecoming ending. On my second playthrough, I skipped most of the optional bosses and opted for the Shura ending. I tried my very hardest to avoid cheese strategies, so each boss was battled in typical head-to-head fashion. One final note, the only Japanese I know is from the limited amount of anime that I've seen, so try not to cringe if I butcher any of the following names. Now we have a long ways to go, so without further delay, let's get started. Number 18, the Folding Screen Monkeys. Well, I did say I was going to include all the bosses on this list, and because they give up a memory, the Folding Screen Monkeys make their debut. Of course, being the only boss that doesn't directly bring any harm to you, there's no other place for the monkeys except for the number 18 spot. The Folding Screen Monkeys are reflectant of the ancient proverb of hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. However, there is a fourth, the do no evil monkey. To defeat this boss battle, you need to kill each of the 4 monkeys. We'll start off with the Do No Evil monkey, as he's the easiest to deal with. As you run about the Hall of Illusion, you may notice glowing footprints appear behind or around you. Believe it or not, the Do No Evil monkey is right next to you. Where the footprints end, begin swinging wildly until something connects. If you did this correctly, the monkey in white robes should apparate before you and fall over dead. Making a play on the Three Wise Monkey proverb, the Do No Evil monkey is invisible due to the fact that over time it has been forgotten about or otherwise left unmentioned. For a faster way to kill the invisible monkey, as soon as you start the area, immediately turn around and start performing your best impersonation of Sweeney Todd, and you should be able to strike him within the first 2 swings. I discovered this on my second playthrough of the game, so unfortunately there is no footage of it, but trust me, he's chilling right behind you from the beginning. After the invisible monkey, the next one you want to prioritize will be the Speak No Evil monkey. He's characterized by his orange robes and is bearing a gong. He has incredibly poor perception overall, but if he catches you, he will ring the alarm which will cause all of the other monkeys to take evasive maneuvers. He starts out directly in front of you on the main entrance rooftop. I suggest immediately hanging a left to take to the rooftops and hopefully get the drop on him. Killing him first will benefit you greatly, as it will increase your stealth opportunities against the remaining monkeys. The See No Evil monkey comes bearing purple robes and has great sight, but terrible hearing. He starts out on the rooftop right next to the light hall. For this monkey, I suggest opening the door on the lower landing of the light hall, located to the left side. Opening the door completely darkens the room. This means that if you chase the monkey into this room, then you are guaranteed to get the drop on him. While you're on the prowl for primate cheeks, you will encounter spectral monkeys that inflict terror with each attack. It's up to you to kill or ignore them. They're frail, so 2 or 3 attacks should suffice in squashing their opposition. The Hear No Evil monkey will be wearing green robes, and like his lore would suggest, he has incredible hearing, but the trade-off for him is that he has poor eyesight. He starts out big chillin' in the large tree in the center of the area. Making a rush from a flanking angle will allow for an easy death blow on him. To defeat all 4 monkeys, you'll get the Shinobi Execution pop-up and be rewarded with their respective memory. Congratulations! Number 17, the Divine Dragon. Let me just start by saying that this is one of my favorite fights in the entire game. The music, the scene, the beauty. This boss fight is 100% appreciation and wonder. Anyways, the Divine Dragon is an incredibly simple fight, but blows you with such grand cinematography that you can overlook the triviality of the fight itself. The Divine Dragon exclusively utilizes air slashes as its means of damage. Incredibly telegraphed in its delivery, you shouldn't have much of a problem dodging its attacks. To beat this boss, you simply need to grapple to the tree that flashes with lightning, in which case you'll boost into the air to cast a lightning reversal. When you get him low, the dragon will destroy the trees. When he does this, you simply need to dodge and stall until the trees return. There's no real strategy, just continuously strafe until the time is ripe. After you strike it with lightning the final time, the divine dragon will fall over and await death. Such a sad ending to such a beautiful fight. Claim what's yours and collect his tears, in the least sadistic manner possible. Number 16, the Corrupted Monk. A bit troubling at first, the Corrupted Monk is a rather simplistic boss. The issue with her comes from the delayed timing on her swings. At this point, most players should have a journeyman grasp on the combat system. As such, you are likely to play like me and attempt to deflect too early, which leaves yourself vulnerable to the Corrupted Monk's onslaught. She has several basic attacks, mostly comprised of exaggerated sweeps, but she also has an uppercut slash that always seem to catch me off guard. Her biggest attack takes shape as a ballet recital comprised of unending sweep attacks that can all be deflected for moderate posture damage. Her two unstoppables are largely telegraphed, with the first one being a thrust attack that you can make carry counter, and the second one being a wide-reaching sweep that you can jump kick. If you get heavy on the offense, she will perform a fadeaway slash as a revenge value. The monk boasts a weakness to snap seeds, which can be used up to 3 times to stun her and deal a moderate amount of damage. In addition to this, the Firecracker's prosthetic will also stun her, which can open a window for healing, or allow you to cut some damage in. The Corrupted Monk has a health bar that is much larger than the typical bosses, so it's wise to play this fight as a posture duel instead of a vitality duel like I did. One of my least favorite fights in the game, the Corrupted Monk ranks so low on this list because she lacks the health, move diversity, defensive capability, and oppressiveness that the other bosses maintain. Number 15, the True Monk. An upgraded and more fleshed out version of her former iteration, the True Monk underwent some upgrades while we were off committing patricide, and then subsequently reminiscing over it. Boasting 3 health bars, each phase of this fight has something special to offer. The first phase echoes your encounter from the Corrupted Monk. The only difference so far is the arena. While her defenses and damage have been scaled to remain on par with your power spike since your previous meeting, the progression of your skills at this point should easily take care of this initial health bar. Just as before, pay close attention to the slow timing of her attacks so you can nail those parries. Keep that jump kick counter ready because she shows favoritism to her perilous sweep. For her second phase, the True Monk will kick things off by casting the Shadow Clone Jutsu and launching a slew of attacks. To avoid this, you can take evasive maneuvers and try Spider-Manning around the tree branches to remain elusive, but please make note that this is not a foolproof strategy. The Monk's uppercut can still catch you and banish you to the abyss. Your other option is to simply hold block. You don't even need to bother with deflecting this time around because you can't deal any posture damage to the monk during this phase. Afterwards, the monk will appear in the center of the bridge where you can resume the fight. Outside of the Shadow Clone, this phase is a copy of the first one. After performing the second death blow, the True Monk is going to reveal that it's been a member of Los Illuminados all along. After falling over, the Plagas within is going to rear its ugly head. During this third phase, there's 2 attacks that you need to be on the watch for. The first is an unstoppable Fear Vomit. Make sure to unzip your pants and whip out your bottled purple gourd. I recommend taking a preemptive swig before you hop into the thick of things to gain the terror resistance, because if you stand for the full channel of the attack otherwise, your terror meter will max out and kill you. The good news is that this attack doesn't have any tracking and leaves the True Monk wide open for some punishment. Don't get too comfortable with attacking though, because she may opt to use the Terror Vomit in back-to-back sequencing. Her second attack is far more dangerous. During this final phase, the True Monk will make liberal usage of a long-range sweeping rush, which makes healing very difficult to pull off safely. Sticking close to her will limit the frequency of this attack, but keep that jump kick at the ready just in case. For a bit of a shortcut on this boss battle, if you climb up into the highest tree, you can actually stealth blow the True Monk during the Shadow Clone onslaught, which will let you immediately skip the second phase. In addition to this, I've also heard that if you're fast enough at getting to the highest tree at the start of the fight, you can also stealth blow the first phase, effectively making this 3-phase fight a single health bar boss. Like with most of the shortcut strategies that are available in this game, I was not aware of the stealth blows, so I ended up going all 3 rounds with her. Number 14, Headless Ape and Guardian Ape. One of the few optional main story bosses, the Headless Ape is discovered in the Guardian Ape's burrow located after the Poison Pool area in Ashina Depths. This boss will only appear after you defeated the Guardian Ape for the first time as part of the main story. The Headless Ape comes equipped with the sword and aggroes to you immediately upon entering the arena. Although he has a shallow move pool, the Headless Ape has a delayed, erratic attack pattern that can throw you for a loop. His most common attack is 4 swiping slashes that demonstrate some hard evidence that Monkey Boots was somehow involved in all of this. Even if he's shaky in his movements, do not go in for the attack until you've seen all 4 strikes. He has another similar attack to this, but instead has more of an overhead startup. He will quickly slash before doing a dramatic flourish above his head, in which he will drop a heavy slam. If you perfect block this last attack, it will stumble the Headless Ape and render him defenseless. While you can take this opportunity to get in some sweet damage, instead, utilize the spear prosthetic and ram that shit into his neck hole. Using the rip function, you'll pull out something that resembles a Resident Evil's Las Plagas and deal significant posture damage in the process. If you choose to play a more spaced out approach with this fight, you will be seeing his sliding slash with increased regularity. Extremely telegraphed, this move gives you a good opportunity to land some blows on him. Simply jump towards him when he starts in for the sweep and you should avoid the attack entirely, thereby allowing you to get some shots in. The good news for this fight is that all of his perilous attacks that he performs with the sword are sweeps, so you only need to be concerned with jumping whenever you see that danger symbol pop up. This includes his graceful ape swan dive. For this move, the Headless Ape will propel himself into the stratosphere before crashing down for a heavy sweep. Just like his sliding slash, wait until the final moment and then jump towards him to avoid the attack and get some damage in. The Headless Ape is classified as an apparition, which means that the firecrackers will have no effect. I didn't know this at the time, but Divine Confetti will actually lend you a hand here if you can spare it. I know I'm dancing around it, but of course I have to talk about his ghostly wail. When executing this attack, the ape will reattach his head to his stump before unleashing a piercing, unblockable, fear-inducing scream that deals steady damage in a wide radius from where he stands. He will also use this attack in retaliation for each time you get all up in his monkey junk. This essentially translates to, hey, you're gonna hear this scream so much that it'll be echoing in your head for the next few hours. If you try to go toe-to-toe with him while he's channeling this attack, you will certainly die from the terror that he inflicts. As with all terror specialized enemies, take the bottled purple gourd to mitigate the side effects of the scream. You know that he's about to perform the attack because you'll see and hear the ape take a large breath before unleashing it. When you see this wind up, immediately run away. When he finishes the channel, get right back into the mix. Your damage at this stage of the game should serve you in knocking through his first health bar. Perform the first death blow and now the real fight can begin. The Headless Ape will step off to the side and unleash a terror scream that will summon a special guest. That's right, you are now fighting the Headless Ape and a first stage Guardian Ape equivalent simultaneously. The Headless Ape will have the same exact behavior as before, and the newly arrived Brown Ape will have the same attack setup as your first encounter with the Guardian Ape. On the plus side, the Brown Ape is far less aggressive than her white counterpart, and the two apes rarely synchronize their periods, and would rather opt for taking turns attacking you. The Brown Ape goes down pretty easy if you focus your attacks on her, but the fight only ends when you kill the Headless Ape. Firecrackers will aid you in stunning the Brown Ape, but again, have no effect on the Headless one. Take your time during this phase and don't get reckless. Because there are two imposing threats, you'll be hard punished for your mistakes. Overall, I feel that if the apes did a better job of synchronizing their attacks, or leveled up their playstyle in some way, then this fight could be a lot more challenging, as well as a lot more fun. I am by no means a Sekiro god, but I managed to one-shot this boss fight if that says anything about it. Even though you are technically fighting two bosses, this battle still ends up near the bottom because for being so intimidating, it's a shame how fast you can dispatch of each monkey. Number 13, Emma the Gentle Blade. After gathering the Lotus Flower, Shelter Stone, and Mortal Blade, you'll reach the critical moment with Owl where you can choose to obey or break the Iron Code. Choosing to forsake Kuro will result in an immediate boss fight versus Emma the Gentle Blade. Emma, while unimposing in her demeanor, is a force to be reckoned with. She has solid slash combos with consistent timing that you can parry for solid posture damage. The best attack for you to build up her posture is the Gentle Flurry, noted by when she winds back before rushing at you for a 4-hit combo that ends with her dragging your blade as she pushes past you. She has a window of vulnerability at the end of this that allows you to get in a free shot. Emma also comes bearing attacks reflectant of Ishin, including the Standing Thrust and Ashina Cross. The Standing Thrust can be Makiri countered, but the Ashina Cross will require 2 perfect deflections as it has piercing on each swing. Emma also has a long-range thrust attack that she will use to punish you if you try healing at range. Her most dangerous attack from my experience is her grapple. Emma will put away her weapons and bring her hands down to her sides before rushing at you. Your only option for this is to run away or perform a frame-perfect dodge. Do not try jumping, as she will catch you out of the air exactly 100% of the time. If you do end up getting hit by this grapple, make sure to mash the dodge button to safety roll out of her follow-up execution slash. Not gonna lie, I felt like complete ass putty for fighting her, seeing as how she rescued you from the well, helps you treat dragon rot, and upgrades your gourd throughout the game. Although she is found on the lower end of this list, Emma ranks up there with Genichiro as one of my favorite fights in the game. Lacking scummy attacks, dealing balanced damage, and taking fur damage herself, I really feel that Emma the Gentleblade deserved to have an additional health bar in second phase to truly complete her as a boss. While I am aware that she's meant to be an introductory warm-up for Ishin, I still can't help but wish she had her own completed and unique fight. Number 12, Gyobu Masataka Onewa. Quick note, if you haven't heard this boss's English voice actor entrance before, then please turn down your audio now.
My name is Gyobu Masataka Onewa!
In case you didn't catch on, this is Gyobu Masataka Onewa, Genichiro's trusted gate guardian. This confrontation takes place in a large war-torn battlefield with plenty of space to move around. Gyobu's attacks come in the form of sweeps and stabs that he performs from atop his mount. If you didn't do the Lady Butterfly memory first, then this is your first main story boss encounter. Gyobu will charge across the arena, talking smack and throwing it back. His most common offensive move is pulling up on you and launching 3 consecutive slams with his spear. While imposing in his delivery, each of these attacks can be deflected. Between each volley of his attacks, Gyobu will be open for a few attacks of your own. Be mindful of your greed, however, because he comes equipped with super armor and will power through you. During this fight, you will have 2 separate instances where you can grapple onto Gyobu. The first instance comes from any time that he is turning around to charge at you. You'll notice the green grapple icon that will appear near his face. Executing the maneuver will interrupt his movement and pull yourself to him where you can then get a few shots in. The other instance will be when he does his perilous attack. For this attack, he will bring his horse to a standstill and extend his spear for a large AoE sweep. While doing this, you will get a prop to Spider-Man onto him, thereby interrupting his move and placing you right next to him. If you have the grappling hook attack skill, you'll be able to deliver more consistent punishment to him after your grapples. After taking enough damage, you will occasionally stun Gyobu and his horse to open up a wider window for some attacks. If you were smart and got the Firecracker Shinobi tool, then you will have an incredibly easy time against this boss, as the Firecrackers deal posture damage and stun Gyobu entirely. I struggled a decent amount against Gyobu because I was still very green at this point in the game. Also, I didn't have the Firecrackers. A second playthrough will see you blowing through this boss in no time flat, but you have to remember, I created this list with my progressive skill in mind, and as such, Gyobu solidifies his standing at the number 12 seed. Number 11, Lady Butterfly. My first real obstacle in the game, I initially attempted to fight Lady Butterfly before the Chained Ogre encounter. You see where I done fucked up? No prayer necklaces, no memory upgrades, and no real skill, Lady Butterfly slaughtered me. You fight her in a rectangular arena with generous spacing and several pillars that you can use as cover against her ranged attacks. After you try squaring up to her, you might feel outmatched against her in a head-to-head fight and may try to go for guerrilla tactics. As much as your instincts may cry out for this, running from Lady Butterfly is the worst thing you can do. If you are spaced away from her, Butterfly will likely opt for her 2-fanged attack where she throws 2 volleys of needles, followed by 2 gap-closing strikes. I suggest dodging the needles and deflecting the strikes if possible. If you draw the short straw, she may instead opt for her perilous rushing sweep. You must jump over this attack because if you ever think that you may be okay running or dodging out of its range, Lady Butterfly will always overextend the animation to shave 1 3/4 inches off of your cheekies, in addition to 80% of your health. Her most dangerous perilous is her aerial grapple. For this move, she will jump up onto some wires and then launch herself towards your location. When you see this, you need to move, and fast. Getting hit by this attack will take a modest 95% off of your vitality, meaning that if you are not completely topped off before getting hit, then you will instantly die. To fight Lady Butterfly, I suggest waiting for 2 specific attacks. She has another air-based attack that will be signaled by her quickly jumping off of 2 separate wires before launching an impressive dropkick. Dodging or blocking this will set up nicely for a counter as she has a generous cooldown before she can take any other action. The other comes from a basic 3-hit combo that she also ends in the dropkick. I suggest dodging the kick, as blocking it will knock you back and minimize your opportunity for damage. If you were like me and chose to fight this boss first, then you're going to be spending quite some time here learning all of her attacks and studying the holes in her defense. Don't give up and keep pressing through. You'll get that death blow eventually. And then hit her second phase. Although she seemingly had only one health bar, it turns out that you were trapped in a genjutsu and were simply fighting an illusion the entire time. Now the real fight begins, and the difficulty is going to spike. Lady Butterfly has all the same attacks and aggression as before, but now she augments all of her attacks with phantom kunai that must be deflected or dodged, as they deal piercing damage through guard. The battle becomes hectic when Lady Butterfly steps back and snaps. She will summon a slew of spectral B-boys that all have perilous attacks. While they die in one hit, it is not worth it to try slaying all of them, especially when your attention needs to be focused on the main threat at hand. If you can spare them, you can pop a snap seed that will disperse the illusions and allow you to resume your battle as it were. Because if you don't deal with the phantoms, then you set Lady Butterfly up for her next move. After a bit of time has passed, all the phantoms will have their souls offered up and be transformed into phantom kunai. The more phantoms that were present, the more phantom kunai there will be. They will home in on your location, and to avoid them, you need to stay moving. These kunai are incredibly dangerous, as getting caught by even one of them will subsequently result in you getting hit by all of them. Like I said, it may be a good idea to pop a snap seed or two to disperse the illusions and nullify this attack entirely. I suggest sticking to Lady Butterfly as much as you can and cut into her defenses just as you did for the first phase. Seeing as how you are new to the game at this stage, deflecting and counterattacking are likely skills that you are still working on, so don't rely on them too heavily if you're not that great at them, because the punishment for messing up is too high at this stage. I didn't know it during my fight with her, but if you throw a shuriken at her when she jumps on the wires, you will deal posture damage and ground her. A pretty handy thing to know if you're looking to stop her from any elevated shenanigans. As with Gyobu, Lady Butterfly is significantly easier on a second playthrough, as your mastery of deflections and counterattacks will allow you to go hard in the paint and blast through her. Defeating Lady Butterfly, though optional, is incredibly rewarding, as she gives you both a memory and a Sakura droplet that you can use to increase your Deathblow resurrection limit. Number 10, Genichiro Ashina. Let's stop messing around. Your battle with Genichiro Ashina at the top of Ashina Castle is the greatest damn fight in the entire game. Hands down, no questions asked. Genichiro Ashina debuts much earlier in the game than I expected, as he is encountered on your first embarkment to Ashina Castle. You are treated to a tense cutscene that gives you an incredible vibe that shit's about to go down. If you're like me, this will be the point in the game where you begin your mastery of deflections and counterattacks, as they are 100% critical for this fight and all subsequent fights afterward. Genichiro has a wide arsenal of attacks, and it's important to learn them all so you can discover the chinks in his defensive and offensive behaviors. He has several variations of bow attacks that we'll cover first. Genichiro will always open up the duel with a charging shot from his bow that leads into a rushing sweep, and you can usually counterattack him after this. If you space too far and try to heal, Genichiro will draw his bow all the way back and fire off a heavy shot that will deal significant damage. Even if blocked, this will cause you to stagger. I initially struggled against this attack because I never paid attention to the timing, but if you strafe in either direction, you should be able to avoid this no problem. It's a bit difficult to see exactly how the draw on the bow is before he fires, so instead, try your best to focus on the audio cue of the shot and time yourself accordingly. The bigger issues come from the other two bow attacks, which he will use as a means of spacing. For the first one, he will do a short dash backwards and fire off 2 quick shots for modest damage. This attack has a very short startup, but is entirely interruptible if you strike him during the animation. The most annoying attack, that always seemed to get me, is his jumping volley, where he takes to the skies and shoots 3 fast shots followed by a 4th heavy shot. I would try my best to predict when he would do this, but just when he got me thinking that he wasn't going to do it, I would rush in and then get pummeled by it. Staying aggressive for this fight will minimize the amount of arrows that he'll shoot at you, so it's important to keep up the pressure. When it comes to playing the posture game, you want to keep an eye out for his multifaceted combo, signaled by a large windup of him bringing his sword from across his body before rushing you. The deflection window for each swing is large, so your timing does not have to be frame perfect to get the deflection. You will know that you performed a perfect block when you see gold sparks fly out from each point of contact. Genichiro will always finish the attack with a heavy swing that will re-stance the both of you. The only danger that comes from this attack is if your posture meter is too high. Should your posture break in the middle of this combo, you are guaranteed to sustain heavy damage from his finisher. If your deflection game is on point, however, you will stack the hell out of his posture. Another thing to look for is his overhead slam that he will chain into a perilous thrust. After deflecting the overhead, spam the hell out of the Mikiri counter to deal additional posture damage. He also possesses a short-range grapple attack that you can see coming from a mile away, but must be avoided as it deals substantial damage if you get caught. Whiff punishing this attack is a reliable way to chip out some HP. Deathblowing Genichiro will initiate the second phase of the fight, and this is where things get challenging. Genichiro will get more aggressive with his offense, but the real problem comes from his introduction of mix-ups. In particular, his overhead slash can now be 50-50'd into either a thrust or a sweep. If he brings the sword in and to the left, he's going to do the thrust. If he brings his sword behind and to the right, he's going to execute the sweep. It's important to read the telegraph closely, because executing the incorrect countermeasure leaves no window of safety. The thrust will hit you if you jump, and the sweep will hit you if you try to make your counter. This fight is a war of attrition, and challenges you to be consistent with the flow of deflect and attack. Expect to make mistakes. Expect to die a handful of times, but just know that with each try, you're learning more about the game's combat system. You're sharpening your skills, and each attempt brings you closer and closer to victory, until you finally achieve that second death blow. And trigger phase 3. Genichiro Way of Tomoe will open with a flying thrust you're going to want to make your counter. He has the same aggression as the second phase, but has one significant difference in that he adds 2 lightning attacks to his arsenal. The first is a jumping charged arrow shot that he imbues with electricity. The attack is an awesome animation signaled by the danger kanji. His other new attack is an empowered slash that he'll execute when the lightning strikes his sword, also accompanied by the danger kanji. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to stand there and T-pose in his face. When he launches his lightning, jump into the air and attack to perform the lightning reversal. You will deal significant vitality and posture damage in addition to stunning him via the shock status. Now conversely, if you fail the lightning reversal, you will almost certainly die, as instead it will be you who takes the vitality damage and the shock effects. While the lightning reversal lends a huge help to this fight, don't get sloppy, as dying to Genichiro here will have you restart the entire battle back from phase 1. This encounter was a true turning point for me, as Genichiro taught me how to actually get good at the game. Earlier, I said I love the fight against Emma the Gentle Blade, but Genichiro has all that Emma has to offer, plus some. His damage is balanced, his attacks are clear, he has obvious windows of vulnerability, but unlike Emma, he has a full 3-phase fight. When you die to Genichiro, you don't really feel cheated or cheesed like you do with other bosses. You feel like each death is entirely your fault. It's a certain art that I haven't really seen in a game since Cuphead. As much as I love this fight, Genichiro only just barely breaks into the top 10, because he doesn't have unbalanced damage output or resistances, in addition to boasting clearly telegraphed attack patterns that you can predict and learn from, unlike some of the next entries coming up. Number 9, Owl Father. Another optional main story boss, Owl Father is a bit of an Easter egg to even find. After obtaining the elusive Father's Bell Charm, Owl can be faced in his prime at the Hirata Estates in the same arena that you previously battled Lady Butterfly. He boasts similarities to his older iteration, but this fight is polar in comparison. Owl Father retains a resemblance of attacks from your first fight with him, but now includes a wide mix-up of attacks that you need to be on the lookout for. Owl Father is much more calculating in his approach, and his windows of vulnerability have decreased. His Shuriken Slam from before is now a rare sighting. Furthermore, his long-winded overhead is not as exploitable, given that he can convert the attack into a sweep if you try to take action against him too early. You need to wait until the last second before dodging so you can get a shot at him. The attack that gave me the most trouble was his Firecracker Slash. This attack involves Owl sprinkling some magic distraction dust that he subsequently slashes to create an explosion in front of him. This attack is unguardable. The problem is that I couldn't ever figure out when he would do the attack. After getting smacked by it dozens of times, I finally deduced that the Firecracker Slash is indicated anytime the Owl throws a shoulder charge into the combo. But even after knowing the sign of the attack, it took some time after to discover a workaround. Essentially, you're going to block the swings leading up to it and search for that telltale shoulder charge. When he goes to sprinkle his gunpowder, you need to either dodge backwards away from him or dodge inward towards him. Dodging back is far safer, but it minimizes your chance for a counterattack, whereas dodging it inside of his attack is riskier, but guarantees you some damage on him. Try this at your own discretion. Owl Father can utilize his firecrackers as a means of spacing or to conceal his other attacks. One of his favorite tricks is to deploy the firecrackers and take a leap backwards, followed by his signature move, the Shadow Rush. Owl will execute a long-range thrust attack, and if it connects, he will convert into a Shadow Fall. Getting hit by the full attack will kill you from full HP. When you see the danger kanji when Owl is at range, get your Mikiri counter ready. If you're unfortunate enough to get caught by the attack, the least you can do is dodge inward so you can avoid the Shadow Fall, still at the cost of around 60%. Outside of these attacks, Owl boasts the same old basic sword combos and rushing perilous sweep. It'll take some learning, but eventually you'll progress to phase 2 and be met with a very interesting added element. Upon receiving a death blow, Owl will call upon his spirit animal to accompany him for the remainder of the bout. Contrary to what you may think, the Spirit Owl is no illusion. Owl now gains the ability to vanish into the Spirit Owl, which he will do anytime that he feels vulnerable or often after completing an open combo. The Spirit Owl will fly around for a short time before going above you. When this happens, Owl Father will almost always pop up directly above for a high ground slam. Successfully dodging his re-entry will allow you to chip out some free vitality. After a time, Owl will recall the spirit to his arm. After a brief moment, the spirit will set ablaze and be fired off at you. This attack is best avoided by either hiding behind one of the pillars or by jump strafing. Do not attempt a simple jump, because the owl comes at you from an angle that can hit you if you are not jump strafing. Another quick note in case you forgot, do not attempt any thrust attacks against Owl Father. He still has access to the Mercury counter and will punish you heavily for trying to insult him as such. Owl Father is a tricky boss to pin down, but staying aggressive and pushing through his spacing options will give you a definite edge in the first phase. For the second phase, you will discover the patience route to be more rewarding. At this point of the game, you've already overcome some decent challenges and battled Owl in his aged iteration. Hopefully, you're able to successfully apply your lessons mastered thus far and squeeze out a patricidal win. Number 8, the Great Shinobi Owl. Great Shinobi Owl comes sliding in above his younger iteration. Going from Genichiro to the Guardian Ape, then to Owl, it was hard for me to switch my playstyle back into man vs. man swordplay when I had just previously spent hours running in circles around a giant animal. Great Shinobi Owl is up to this title and employs a plethora of tools throughout. Owl's posture regains incredibly fast, so to see any real progress, you're going to want to take out around 1/3 of his HP before playing the posture game. Owl has some basic sword combos that are becoming of default boss attacks, in addition to some attacks that you may recognize, such as the Shuriken plus follow-up slash. But naturally, he has some specialties in his back pocket. One of his most annoying attacks is his kick toss rush. Owl will kick at you and launch himself backward, throwing out a handful of Shuriken while airborne. As soon as he lands, he will come at you with a rushing slash. The annoying part about this is sometimes he will cycle this move over and over again, steadily building up your posture and shaving off health in the process, leaving no windows for you to counterattack. This leads to the first problem, which is his posture execute. If your posture gets broken, or close to broken, Owl will curb stomp you onto the floor and plant his sword through your chest. This will deal extreme damage, straight up killing you in most cases. If you ever find your posture being broken, you need to mash that safety roll because otherwise that curb stomp is coming your way. On the topic of executions, do not try any thrust attacks in your fight against Owl. He is the creator of the Mercury counter and will demonstrate it to you as such. Thrusting at Owl ends in a one-way ticket to getting the death screen. The attack you really need to stay vigilant of is his potion toss. He can swing this one of two ways. He may just run up to you and dry fire the attack, which is the best option as you have 0 damage risk. Alternatively, he can use the potion toss as a follow-up after he performs a long-range rushing slash. Either way, do not get hit by the ominous liquid because it will disable all of your healing items temporarily. It's important to note that the potion creates a cloud that lingers for a few seconds, so to avoid the debuff, you'll need to wait until it clears. When Owl throws the potion, he leaves himself vulnerable, so punish him while you can, but be absolutely certain not to let your momentum carry you into the lingering cloud. Just as with the Owl Father fight, the attack that gave me the most trouble was the Firecracker Slash. Having already covered the workaround, you should be able to deal with this move efficiently. Wait to see the shoulder come out in his combo before dodging forward or backward. In terms of when you can safely attack, watch for when Owl does his front flip slam, or dramatic overhead slam. Both of these attacks leave him clean open for a counter, so take advantage of these while you can. His second phase brings a whole new mess. Owl's kick toss slash now has him throwing out pools of poison that linger far longer than they should, which in turn rapidly build up the poison status. He also gets a new revenge value in the form of a large smokescreen. This smokescreen completely obscures the area and will drop your lock on Owl. Stay on your guard or run like a water buffalo, the choice is yours. Luckily his patterns and behavior remain the same as the first phase. I recommend using the Firecracker prosthetic to stun him and open up opportunities for you to get some gourd guzzles off. A challenging boss nonetheless, Great Shinobi Owl ranks above Owl Father due to the fact that after facing Great Shinobi Owl, I somewhat knew what to expect from Owl Father. While Owl Father is innately more difficult, I was far more prepared when I battled him, as opposed to when I faced off against Great Shinobi Owl. Number 7, the Guardian Ape. The Guardian Ape is encountered in the Sunken Valley as part of your quest to obtain the Lotus Flower. Perhaps you detected feelings of dread upon your first stumbling across this wild and out King Kong incarnation. Do you know what that is? That's your instincts telling you that you were up Paddle Creek without a shit. The Guardian Ape is insanely sporadic in both his attack patterns and movement pathing, complete with large sweeping attacks that have generous hitboxes. From Genichiro until now, you feel like you've had a solid grasp on the deflecting counterattack combat system that Sekiro has laid out before you. But when I faced off against this monkey, fuck, all of that went out the window. Somehow this boss actually made me forget how to play the game. The imposition that he effuses is almost unparalleled to any other on this list. Instead of standing my ground and exploiting his openings, I found myself fleeing the scene like a butcher at a vegan feast, only occasionally going in for a cut or two before having my sphincter pounded and tossed aside. Up close, he has 3 distinct attacks to be on the watch for. The first is his Perilous, which comes in the form of a sweeping grapple. This attack is one of his most devastating, dealing over 80% and it must be jumped over. Attempts to dodge or run away from this will have tiny fractions of success because the hitbox for this move is large, and the window for success is very precise. If you're up close and personal, you'll likely be juggling his monkey balls and not exactly see the abrupt 2-frame windup. Because of this, I recommend listening for the audio cue of the danger kanji instead of trying to look for the visual telegraph of the attack. His next 2 attacks are dependent on which arm he uses for the startup. If he brings out his right arm, aka the one on your left, he would do a wide-reaching sweep that will cause him to lose balance and fall on his ass. This attack becomes problematic because it's actually a 50-50 mix-up. Sometimes he decides to sit there in a daydream, providing an opportunity for you to attack him. Other times he will perform a delayed rampage combo. I personally opted to cut my losses and just keep my guard up in either case because that rampage is a heavy hitter. His final close quarters move is when he brings his left arm out, aka the one on your right. He will do a sweeping uppercut that will transition into a back flop tantrum where the ape will roll around and flail his limbs. This attack is the one that I took advantage of the most using the spear prosthetic to get in some solid punishment. The pattern and hitboxes of his tantrum will definitely take some learning to pin down, but once you get a grasp of how the attack works, you will also find this move a good damage opportunity. At middle range, he'll play some slap and tickle, but you only really need to be worried about his second unstoppable, which is also a grapple. The guardian ape will walk up to you abruptly on his hind legs before catapulting himself into the air for a somersault cradle, which will flow nicely into a yo Becky let me smash. This attack has the most bullshit hitbox, as there are times when you can be completely behind him and this shit will still connect. He may also go for the somersault cradle at long range, but chances are he's going to hit you with the diarrhea dunk. This attack does significant damage and applies the poison status. For getting hit with shit, this attack does more damage than I really think it should. He will also use this attack as a follow-up for his crop duster, in which he blows a giant ass cloud on your face for high poison buildup. Note that he will only hit you with a crop duster if you attack him from behind. The shinobi firecrackers will be a huge help against this boss. Be mindful that when you hit him with it, he will attempt to fall onto you for moderate damage and knockback, so wait for him to fall before getting your fill. Otherwise, try to stay pseudo close to him as staying in his proximity will hopefully lock him out of his diarrhea dunk and somersault cradle. After taking enough damage, the ape will fall over and allow you to smack him around a bit. Afterwards, he will roll away and use the somersault cradle as a revenge value, which you can rotate around to dodge. The unpredictability and spontaneity of the guardian ape is a daunting learning curve that will definitely take some deaths to get through. Dealing the death blow here will decapitate the monkey and hit you with that sweet shinobi execute. As well as his second phase. Time to ring the bullshit bell because things are about to level up. The recently deceased monkey will pick up his head in one hand, the sword in the other, and then get back to finish what he started. The headless ape is now classified as an apparition, meaning that the firecrackers no longer have any effect. I didn't know this at the time, but divine confetti actually lends you a hand here if you can spare it. The second phase brings all new attacks and foregoes all of the previous ones. As mentioned in the 2-ape fight, his most noteworthy move will be the signature ghostly wail, which, again, does vitality damage and a large area of effect in addition to rapidly building the terror status. As before, look for the deep breath visual and audio cue that accompany this so you know when you need to get out of there. Once again, make usage of your mottled purple gourd to mitigate the terror. Aside from this, he will employ several different sword combos that have a bit of an unconventional sway to them. His most common attack will be the 4/sword combo that swings left and right. Each hit has a stutter to them, so make sure to count out the 4 swipes before you take your turn. Alternatively, he has a 2-hit and 3-hit combo in his arsenal. You'll know when he's finished his attack because he'll take a moment to reset his composure after each combo completion. His perilous attacks aside from the scream are both sweeps. One of them is a dry attack, meaning that he'll simply approach and take a whiff at you. The second one is more dramatic. The headless ape will propel himself into the stratosphere before crashing down with a heavy sweep. In both cases, you simply need to time your jump. I recommend jumping into him for both of these attacks as you set yourself up to punish him. On top of this, there are 2 other attacks to watch for. His slithering strike is another sweeping move that you can see coming a mile away. For this, you want to jump into him and get in some swings before he re-stands and counters with his ghostly wail. The other is his execution drop. The Headless Ape will swing his sword high above himself and perform a large vertical slash. Time your block because nailing a perfect deflection will cause him to lose balance and crash. You already know the trick. Utilize the spear prosthetic and ram that shit into his neck hole to expose the Plagas within, dealing significant posture damage in the process. The Headless Ape has super armor on all attacks and abilities, so the best option is to wait until he's whiffed an attack or completed a combo before going on the offensive. Dying to this boss will force you to fight him from his head full first phase, so stay patient and take your time. For first timers, just know that each veteran player is pouring one out for you. Number 6, Inner Father. Oh what, you thought I wasn't going to include the inner fights on this list? Luckily for me, and you I guess, this update was released while I was in the process of making this video, so naturally I had to face them to bring the completionist aspect to this ranking. The first inner boss to hit this list is Inner Father. He's a Super Saiyan version of Owl Father, and this fight takes place in the same arena, at Hirata Estates. In the beginning of the video, I said that I didn't use any attack steroids on the bosses. Well, that only accounts for main story bosses. The inner boss fights are technically not part of the main game, so therefore I utilized both Divine Confetti and Akko's Sugar right out the gate. Oops! Owl has the same annoying mix-ups, but in this incarnation he flexes his mastery of the offensive Mist Ravens in your ignorant face. If you get too oppressive, Owl will blink behind you for 2 quick slashes that have a 0-frame startup. If you are mid-attack or slow to block, you are guaranteed to get hit for 50% of your health. As before, the biggest window for attack is when he does a rolling slash that he can convert into a heavy overhead swing. Do not dodge too soon, however, because he can convert this overhead into a sweep instead, so you need to be particular with your timing. The first thing you'll come to learn about these inner fights is that in addition to each boss having increased aggression, they all obtain access to special cancels. If you're not familiar with that term, essentially, the inner bosses can interrupt the flow of one of their combos or cooldown periods to perform a special attack, or even chain into a different combo entirely. For instance, Owl's Shuriken Slam attack typically left him completely vulnerable for a counter, but now he can cover his bases by converting the downtime into a punishing sweep. Owl Father will also make liberal usage of the Whirlwind Slash, usually performed after he darts back and forth. Make note, however, that he can also use the Whirlwind Slash as a special cancel. Aside from these, he has the same old loadout as your fight against Owl Father. That is, until you deal the first death blow. If you thought Owl Father's Phase 2 had small windows for attack, Inner Father's Phase 2 barely leaves a crack in the door for you to even make a passing fart through. There's so many different things to look out for in this stage. Owl will bring out his spirit animal to bestow him with the same bullshit as before. This means that he will fade away if you try to get oppressive, as well as employ the Phoenix Strike Ninpo. He will always follow up the Phoenix Strike with the Shadow Rush into Shadow Fall combo, so like before, you're going to want to make sure you counter this because it will one-shot you from full health. The obvious aside, his Mist Raven offense comes in 2 different forms. In one instance, he will port backwards for a rushing slash, followed by a blink above for a multi-shuriken toss. Before even touching the ground, he will port directly above you for an overhead slam that will cause stagger. His second form of Mist Ravens will have him executing 2 quick slashes, transitioning into the Whirlwind Slash, and ending in an overhead slam. Be careful about attacking him here, as he can special cancel his downtime into another attack immediately after. Between the Mist Ravens, Firecrackers, Spirit Animal specials, kickbacks, fadeaways, and special cancels, there will be times when you can go over a minute without even having a chance to strike him. Although not as deadly as the other inner bosses, visually it's one of the coolest fights. But even with that said, this battle still takes incredible patience and deep knowledge of Owl's abilities to counter and overcome. Number 5, Inner Genichiro. That's right baby, he's back and better than ever. Genichiro underwent a bit of an upgrade since we last saw him, and boy is it sweet. His windows of vulnerability have been minimized, and he's been topped off with increased aggression and scaled damage. In addition to these subtle tweaks, Inner Genichiro has an incredible new attack that he will open with called the Sakura Dance. For this, Genichiro will crouch and pull his sword to his side before springing up into the air and unleashing 3 widespread sweeps, reminiscent of Ryu Hayabusa's Air Destruction Slash. Each swing deals piercing damage, and failure to block results in a one-shot. In fact, the Sakura Dance is so deadly that it is single-handedly the reason that he elevates to such a high ranking. Because the wind-up to this move looks similar to his sword combo, you are likely to get caught out quite a few times. Genichiro can also special cancel his ordinary attacks and adapt for styles that befit each situation dependent upon what you are doing. For example, if you parry too many attacks from his multifaucet combo, he can special cancel the finisher for his perilous grapple, or even the Sakura dance. You're going to want to do your best to get Genichiro to rally with you to build up his posture. By this, I mean attack him until he deflects your attack, denoted by the gold sparks, and then deflect his counterattack. This will allow you to go back onto the offensive until he deflects you again, thereby repeating the process. Inner Genichiro is relentless in his assault, hardly leaving you any breathing room in between to restore your posture. When you feel that you're getting overwhelmed, feel free to use some firecrackers to give you some time to heal up and regain your posture. It will take some time to adjust to the newfound ferocity of Inner Genichiro, but he has another surprise for you in his third phase. Genichiro Way of Tomoe will appear to be the same as before, opening with the flying thrust. But you're in for a bit of a shock when he goes for a lightning attack. As you've done in your previous fight, you will want to perform the lightning reversal, which essentially Uno reverses his electricity right back at him. However, Inner Genichiro will now Uno reverse your Uno reverse by utilization of the Sakura dance, meaning that you're going to have to play a second Uno reverse to complete the reversal circle. You follow? Take the same caution as you have against him thus far and do not slack. Although the lightning reversals lend a huge help against him, Genichiro Way of Tomoe is still a formidable foe, and in my most humble and non-biased opinion, this fight with Genichiro should have been the true final boss fight instead of Ishin. Successfully defeating this incredible fight grants you access to the Sakura dance combat art. Number 4, Ishin Ashida. Only battleable if you pursue the Shura ending of the game, Old Man Ishin sits comfortably within the top 5. This fight with Ishin reinforces your resolve to break instinct and to play more towards calculations and readings of the boss itself. His first phase employs attacks reminiscent of Emma the Gentle Blade, as he has the same Ashina Cross, grapple attack, and a similar blade combo. Just like how Emma had a flying thrust to interrupt your healing, Ishin has a rushing slash that he will perform for the same function. This means that you should only heal when you have excessive spacing between the two of you, or after hitting him with a firecracker barrage. The two attacks that always seem to catch me off guard are his perilous ones. For his first one, Ishin will take 2 steps around you clockwise, and then perform a standing thrust that you can easily Mikiri counter. The other one that got me was his EI strike that chains into a sweep. For this attack, I always assumed he would Ashina Cross, so I had my hands ready for the double deflection, and I was never prepared for the sweep. A solid window to attack him is after he performs the Ishimonji double. Deflecting the first strike will throw him off his guard and allow for punishment. Another great attack to counter is his double Gatotsu. He'll bring his sword up near his face in an obvious thrusting stance and then perform 2 stab attacks, which you can Mikiri counter. Only the second thrust is a perilous, so you have some forgiveness here in defending against the first one. The most bullshit part of this whole fight, however, is how Ishin will sidestep your swings and immediately punish you. Even at the time of this video, I don't know the formula for when he will do this, but it almost guarantees that he strikes you for a generous 50% of your health pool. The best thing you can do is get him in a cycle of rallies, similar to how you did with Genichiro. If you strike against his guard 2 times, he will almost always deflect your second strike, denoted by the orange sparks, before counterattacking. If you deflect his counterattack, then you will have the opportunity to strike 2 more times, in which he will deflect your second strike once more, thereby repeating the process. This is a safe and simple way to build his posture up, but take heed as he will only run the cycle a few times before switching to something more heinous. As a whole, his first phase isn't too bad, but things take a turn for the worse once he starts firebending. Like I said, this boss forces you to think carefully about your instinctual reactions, because here, the whole flow of things takes a turn on its head. Ishin will kick things off by igniting the entire arena with blazing geysers before rushing you and performing One Mind. This attack is reflected of Virgil's Devil Trigger combo, and that Ishin will sheath his sword and deal dozens of lightning-fast strikes in an area in front of him. Each strike pierces, so needless to say that this attack will do severe damage if not deflected or dodged. I personally struggle to pin it down, but if you pay attention to the arena, you'll be able to discern where the geysers will erupt from, so take that into careful consideration in your placement before attempting to deal with Ishin's One Mind. So that way you can avoid the fire and brimstone. The biggest problem for me is his blazing Ishimonji. In the first phase you become fixated on deflecting the Ishimonji as it provides a great opportunity to shave off health. In the second phase, you do not want to try deflecting this attack. When you see him wind up the Ishimonji, you're going to need to dodge far to his side or behind him as he sets the whole area in front of him ablaze, dealing moderate damage and instantly inflicting the burn status. At range, he can stomp to ignite the ground in front of him before launching a wave of flames at you in a cone. This attack is best strafe jumped. Because I completed the Dragon's Homecoming ending first, I had access to the Dragon Flash combat art, which I employed liberally against him. If you chose to do the Shura ending first, then you are seriously missing out. The Dragon Flash deals great damage, pierces guard, and can interrupt most of Ishin's attacks. I usually employed a few of these at the start of a second phase to get a head start on his vitality pool. This fight will be a true tribulation for those who have become reliant on muscle memory, as the change up between his first and second phases forces the player to use their eyes and react accordingly, instead of usual reflexive go-tos. A challenging fight overall, but outside of his sidestepping jests, Ishin Ashina doesn't have anything as bad as the upcoming entry.
Sekiro
Number 3, the Demon of Hatred. Oh, you want me to fight that? This Bloodborne-esque piece? What? Pretty much everyone's reaction is seeing this behemoth of a boss. Pulled straight out of From Software's cancelled Bloodborne DLC, the Demon of Hatred is the final optional main boss, and as such, it is one of the hardest in the game. He has the same passive effect as the Guardian Ape in that he makes you forget how to play the game. All those hours you spent honing your skills and mastering the deflection counterattack combat system go out the window as every nerve and primal instinct screams for you to run for your life. Loaded up with one of the largest move pools in the game, the Demon of Hatred doesn't give two taint stains about your health or your damage. The weakest of his attacks deals 1/3 of your health bar, while his strongest single attack deals up to 85%. Notice how I said single attack. This means that if you get hit by 2 or 3 moves in succession, then you can very well die. This is one of the longest fights in the game because the Demon of Hatred has a ridiculous amount of vitality and an even more insane amount of posture. For his first phase, the Demon of Hatred performs different attacks depending on your spacing from him, which lends this fight to have at least an element of predictability. At range, he will employ his Fireball Barrage, which you can opt for volleys of 1 or 2. This is one of his more dangerous attacks, as the fireballs have partial homing, deal heavy damage, inflict burns, and are deceptively hard to dodge. I heavily recommend obtaining and using Suzaku's Lotus Umbrella to guarantee shield yourself from this attack. If he doesn't go for the Fireball Volley, he can instead perform his knockoff Naruto Fox Chakra Arm Slam. I know, not the catchiest name, but you go ahead and try to tell me any different. This arm slam has a large range but comes down vertically. You can try deflecting the attack, but it will apply the burn status through your guard, so it is best dodged. Up close, he has a 4-hit combo that took me some time to learn due to the fact that the timing is remarkably exaggerated. His chakra arm will blaze up and he will swing at you 2 times before converting into a stomp. This seems like the ending hit, but as soon as you get comfortable, he takes one final swing with his chakra arm to complete the combo. If you spend too much time chopping his crotch, he has 3 methods of spacing. His most simple tactic will be to jump a short distance. A little annoying, but nothing too bad. His second method will be his Grand Skyfall. The Demon of Hatred will glow bright orange before flying high into the air and returning with a massive slam. When you see this, you're supposed to run away and jump. This gives you the chance to grapple and Spider-Man your way back to the demon to push your offense. Alternatively, you can bust out Suzaku's umbrella and tank the attack head-on. If you do this, be certain to hold the umbrella open for a second or 2 after he lands, otherwise the resulting shockwave will knock you back. If you time this correctly, then you are free to get some solid hits in before he prepares his next move. His final means of spacing is also his most dangerous of all. It's his Demon Rush. This attack has one of the shortest telegraphs out of any boss ability in the game, and deals extreme damage if it connects. The Demon of Hatred will pull back his right arm, followed by a quick flashing of the Danger Kanji. If you are not already jumping to the side when this happens, it's too late. He will rush across the battlefield, knocking you aside for a majority of your health. After doing this rush, he will almost always follow up with a volley of fireballs. As you work to chase him down, have that umbrella at the ready to block against this. He has a few basic attacks in the form of singular swings, stomps, and headbutts, but nothing too extraordinary, until of course you hit his second phase. After performing the first death blow, the demon will enter a state of invincibility where he holds his head in shame, before releasing a short-range shockwave that knocks you back. In the second phase, he gains access to 2 new attacks, the first of which is an augment to his Demon Rush. Now when he completes the Demon Rush, he will turn and burn, sending a large path of flame in your general direction. This follow-up hits close for 50% and applies the burn status. It is best avoided by strafe jumping. He also unlocks his second long-range attack, and it comes in the shape of flaming corpses. These projectiles have homing on them and deal much more damage than you think they ever should. Getting hit by just 2 of these is enough to kill you. You will know when he's about to use his corpse barrage when you see the Demon of Hatred hold his arms out and start to do his DIY yoga routine. I suggest running circles around him until you see the T-pose. This signifies that he has completed the attack, which in turn allows you to go on the offense. Not much else to really talk about as his patterns remain the same as stage 1. If you're so lucky as to make it to stage 3, get ready for some truly outrageous spectacles. The Demon of Hatred will kick things off by using his latest Perilous, which comes out as a large AoE sweep from his chakra arm, where he will trace a ring. This is immediately followed up by him setting the ring ablaze, thereby trapping you in with him. try to stay center stage because, as you know by now, the demon has knockback on all of its attacks and you don't want to get shoved into the flames. Now, I never touched the wall of flames in my playthrough, but something tells me that something bad would happen if I did. Oh, you remember his demon rush? Yeah, that attack gets an additional upgrade in stage 3. He can now 50-50 his demon rush into either the flaming slam from before, or he can charge at you an additional time. Just a heads up, if he goes for the double charge, you're going to want to jump at both instances. He also gets a few new basic attacks and augments. His short jump that he used previously for spacing is now a long distance backwards leap, which sets him at perfect range to nail you with fireball volleys. The most troubling basic attack for me is the new lunging attack that he does with his non-flaming hand. I can never tell when he was going to do it, and it chunks out a modest 40%. When this fight begins, make a break for the demon's taint. You're going to want to be completely African goggling him as you deliver slash after slash to his vulnerable crotch. Never try to greed because he has super armor on everything he does, so while you're attacking, always keep an eye on what he's doing, especially if he's using the demon rush. Suzaku's umbrella has incredible value in this fight, so don't hesitate to use it to soak up his elemental attacks. If you really feel that you can't overcome this boss, then there is a secret prosthetic that you can use to make this a hell of a lot easier. A colleague of mine ascertained that the Demon of Hatred is susceptible to the Malcontent prosthetic tool, obtained from the Shishimen warrior and the guardian named Burrow. The Malcontent will stun the Demon of Hatred long enough for you to get about 25% of his health off for free. However, make note that Malcontent is only effective for 3 casts, so you gotta make them count. In my fight against the Demon of Hatred, I was not privy to this knowledge, so, like usual, I had to do things the hard way. While I know that many people are not a fan of this fight, I think that the Demon of Hatred is cinematically awesome and completely unique. The boss evolves as you fight, unlocking and implementing new movesets, as well as employing and enhancing the old ones. Developmentally, you have to admit, this boss fight is epic as all hell. Number 2, Ishin the Sword Saint. Originally, it was a toss-up between Ishin the Sword Saint and the Demon of Hatred for this number 2 spot. Matter of fact, it was so close that I actually had to go and challenge each boss a second time to finalize my decision. And I have to hand it to Ishin, he solidifies himself as a greater challenge. This is because the Demon of Hatred holds a considerable weakness to a prosthetic in the form of Malcontent, whereas Ishin doesn't have such a weakness. This multi-phase boss fight kicks off by having you fight Genichiro Ashina for the 3rd time. He only has one new attack and it's the Black Mortal Draw. You'll know that he's going to execute it when he draws in dark energy and brings his blade across his body. Your options are to either outrange the attack, good luck with that, or quickly circle around behind him. Seeing as how he hasn't improved his damage or resistances by a recognizable margin, he's basically the same boyo that you battled at Ashina Castle. Employ the same strategy as before, and he should go down fairly quickly thanks to the skill and stat power creep that you've accumulated throughout the game. With him out of the way, the real fight can begin. Ishin the Sword Saint has such an epic presence. The music, the scene, the approach. The first phase of this fight is awesomeness personified. This fight completely embodies the feelings of endgame final boss. Even though I still think Inner Genichiro should have been the finale fight. But even with my bias, Ishin does not disappoint. He has several basic attacks and a generous amount of special moves. Deflecting his basic 3-sword combo will be a solid source of inflicting posture damage, but watch the strikes carefully as he staggers each swing to throw off your timing. He also uses the starting swing of this attack as one of his revenge values, which is great news because if you're lucky, you can loop him into trading with you, and essentially get into a rally with him that will allow you to steadily stack his posture. If you deflect too many of his attacks, Ishin will pace a few steps to your right in a clockwise fashion. This means that he's going to use his standing thrust, which you can Mikiri counter. He also retains the twin Gatotsu where he will thrust at you twice, easy enough to see coming and easy enough to Mikiri counter. Mirroring his old incarnation, he makes liberal use of the follow-up sweep performed after his EI strike. You'll know he's going to do this when he puts his sword away and lowers his stance, also cued by a quick glint of his sword. This attack caught me out often because he also does a startup when he executes the Ashina Cross. You need a perfect deflect each swing to avoid damage as it pierces your guard otherwise. Now as far as Ishin's special moves go, he is the progenitor of the Dragon Flash. Ishin will draw in key energy and hold his sword up in a thrusting stance. He will then deal a lightning fast vertical strike that sends out an instant shockwave, followed by an equally strong delayed shockwave that has extreme range. For this move, you'll need to strafe either to the left or right, and possibly even jump just to ensure that extra bit of safety. For this first phase, you're going to want to play the posture game as much as you can. Unlike the Demon of Hatred, this is not a vitality boss, so focus your best on keeping up the pressure and deflecting. Hopefully, without too much struggle, you can score the first death blow so we can talk about the actual fight. Ishin's Phase 2 is completely polar to his Phase 1. He will start by stomping the ground, knocking you back before reaching at his feet, pulling out a massive polearm. The slow-moving, calculating man from moments ago is no more. His aggression is unparalleled as he now sprints after you, performing long-range sweeps and slams, all in the name of booty claim. There are so many options for Ishin, and he will employ the correct attack for the correct situation. Ishin will rely on his sword for some up-close and personal exchanges. Here, there are 3 moves you need to be aware of. The first is a spacing attack that he uses if you become too oppressive. He will jump back a good distance while performing a fadeaway sweep. This attack hits for around 40%, making it one of his less lethal attacks, but the move is hard to predict because you'll often be caught up in trying to damage him. The next attack is his 2-feint combo. For this, he will alternate attacks with his weapons, each swing dealing heavy posture damage that will require perfect deflections to save yourself from staggering. At the very end of the combo, he will end in a thrust that has an extremely large window for you to make your counter. The last attack you want to be on the guard for is a shotgun blast from under his garments. Yeah, you heard me. Ishin comes equipped with a pistol that he can overcharge, I guess, to perform a large blast at close range that deals moderate damage and knockback. Speaking of which, he will also perform rapid shots from his pistol if you choose the spacing option. In one instance, he will take a stance and pop off 6 rounds in your direction. These shots can be blocked, and I highly recommend that you do. The other case will be if you consistently run away from him. He will fire the pistol while rushing at you in an attempt to hinder you and deal some solid chip damage. When not opting for the gangbanger route, Ishin will also take swipes with his spear. Traditionally, you can expect to see a lot of jumping slams from him. Might I add, he also retains most of his attacks from his first phase, so just when you think that you've gotten down the rhythm of his second phase offense, he switches things up on you. Ishin also has generous super armor in his attacks, so greed will often end in defeat. If you see Ishin draw in the Earth's natural energy, you're going to want to jump kick him, as he will perform a wide-range piercing sweep in a large area around him. When he hits his third phase, Ishin will employ the exact same tactics as phase 2, but with some added lightning. This actually makes the fight easier than his second phase, but it's not the time to get complacent. The lightning is devastating as always, so you can't afford to mess up any of the reversals. Additionally, the Sword Saint will now add ranged wind slashes to his arsenal of key attacks. These wind slashes have an incredibly short charge up and wonky as hell hitboxes, so best of luck out here. Winning this fight requires thorough knowledge of Ishin the Sword Saint's arsenal as well as his behavioral shifts between phases. As you die more and more, try not to lose focus on your preludical battle against Genichiro, because believe it or not, Genichiro was responsible for more deaths than Ishin was due to my hastiness. Defeating Ishin the Sword Saint not only completes the game, but grants you access to the Dragon Flash, which in my opinion is the best combat art in the game. Number 1. Inner Ishin. From Software really gonna do us like that, huh? They really had to give this guy a Super Saiyan upgrade. I got one-shot so many times against Inner Ishin that I started dissociating. This boss fight shattered my psyche and dissolved my personality. This fight made me truly believe that my success at beating Ishin the Sword Saint the first time was a fluke. From first phase to final phase, this fight does not ease up for a single second. Inner Ishin has all the same abilities and attacks from his previous form, but he augments his old attacks, special cancels, 50/50s, and adds 2 new perilous moves to his roster. Although his first form is overall easier than his second, the perilous mortal draw attack that he employs is by far his most deadly attack. Inner Ishin will channel Black Chakra before unleashing a strike that hits in a circle around him, with a delayed larger circle outside of that one. If you get hit by the first slash, you are almost guaranteed death, as the first slash will knock you into the second one. This attack cannot be guarded, dodged, or jumped. To avoid this move, you need to perfectly gauge the attack. What I mean by that is you need to run as soon as you see him channeling the first strike. When that whiffs, you need to immediately rush back towards Ishin to get inside of the second strike. You can't let your guard down because outside of his opening move, you'll never know when he'll decide to weave this into his combos. He also hard punishes gourd sipping via a rushing slash. And speaking of rushing slashes, his Ashin across from before now has a second dash to it, which greatly minimizes your odds of running away to outrange the attack. You're better off just trying to deflect the slashes instead. What makes this whole fight tilting is the holes of vulnerability that you've come to exploit against Ishin the Sword Saint are now gone, as he can special cancel attacks such as the Twin Gatotsu into another attack that is safe on guard for him. This adds a new dynamic to things, as you now need to precisely watch his attacks instead of employing muscle memory at seeing his old startups. When you get him to his second phase, Inner Ishin will introduce his next perilous attack. Ishin will draw his sword and take a crouching stance before rushing at you for a sword sweep, followed by a spear uppercut. To counter this, I suggest strafe jumping as soon as you see him move at you. Wait to see what he does next, as he will chain into a 50-50. If he begins gathering his ki, he will execute a long-range vertical slash that deals piercing damage. This is best avoided by performing a precise strafe jump, and by precise, I really do mean that your framing needs to be perfect. Jumping too soon or too late will see you getting caught out by the final attack as it strikes instantly. Alternatively, Ishin can chain into an aerial thrust that you naturally want to Mikiri counter. Boasting all of the same bullshit as Ishin the Sword Saint, this newest addition to his arsenal pushes this boss over the edge from his already difficult standing. His third phase is the same as his second phase outside of the lightning attacks, which again makes things easier. Take heed though, as he is still as dangerous as ever. Unlike Inner Genichiro, Ishin does not reflect lightning back at you, so you will not need to worry about performing double reversals. This was the hardest boss fight for me personally, because even though I was at peak performance of my Sekiro gameplay, victory never felt assured to me, even at the very end. It wasn't until I dealt the final death blow that I began to accept that I could beat this boss. Best of luck to you all versus this beast of an enemy. With that said, that's going to do it for this list. Thank you so much for sticking through this lengthy rambling of pain-inducing boss fights. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed suffering to make it. For those of you that have played the game, let me know what you think about how your Sekiro experience matches up against mine. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. Take care, stay safe, stay happy, and until then, bye-bye.